the lesson.
Oh, yeah.
You actually, at one point, painted.
Yeah,
you were a writer.
Yeah, certainly was.
So tell us, what came first, the graffiti or the music? And then
cool.
tell us how that, that sort of came
Well, for me, the first introduction obviously was b-boying. A cousin who was involved in a group called Easy Rap, which is Adelaide's first hip-hop crew. So my first exposure was to b-boying, and at that I was pretty pathetic, pretty bad, pretty poor. So I had to find an expression that would suit me. So graffiti probably was the next thing to come along. Graffiti was just sort of coming out then. You're just starting to see pieces coming on the lines, train lines. Lived on the Belair line, so got to see the start of the graffiti culture come. So the graffiti started first, so that's where the tag Flak came in, was obviously from the graffiti side of things.
And around what year?
I first started writing Flak was first year high school, so that's 1987. So yeah.
And then so you started painting around 87.
Yep.
And then how did things progress?
Well, there was a few hip hop shows going on then, not massively, like one every 6 months. Obviously Ice-T came through and did shows here, Jungle Brothers came through and did shows, so we're exposed. There was people like Rust, who was from the Noarlunga line, part of CSI crew. Obviously he was painting and rapping. He was probably the first one to come through. You had Madcap and his crew, Unity, those guys doing shows. So there was crews doing shows, not rapid shows, but there was sporadic shows. So that got the exposure to the emceeing side, and just decided one day that, hey, give it a crack.
And then so once you decided that, how did the whole crossbred thing come about?
Crossbred was mates. Originally it was Shazzy Shay or Swift G, whatever tag he wrote back then. Myself and Flea, he was Morse back then. It was just a joke between us because of mixed cultural backgrounds. So we just called ourselves the Cross Bred Mongrels as a joke, and that's how that name came about.
Yeah, right. And then how did Debris?
I met Debris in about 1994 through Delta. Delta was living with his parents' house, and Debris was living on Young Street in Ranella. And I used to go to the Ranella markets and dig for vinyl for sampling and stuff like that. And Delts would be there. And so I met Delta, and he said, you should come and see this guy, this young producer. And that was Debris. So we went around there and looped up some product, and away we went from there.
Did things used to be a bit rougher?
You probably did, because it was more the graffiti background. It goes back to the lines. Everything was back to the lines, Port Adelaide, Gawler line, Noarlunga line, Belair line, or where you came from. So it was that tribal thing of that you're representing your area more so than representing a state. So that's probably where the rivalries came in.
So who was sort of like the dominant?
Oh, probably 738, which was obviously CSI. CSI originally with Rust, who was the first MC here, and then they changed their name to 738, and that they were always the dominant crew and still are the most dominant crew.
And then other than them, who were some of the other,
you had probably FTP. Those guys were big at the time. You had Cold Stomper Vandals. You had USN. So there was a fair few crews. Depending on where you're coming from, that's obviously the crew you joined up with and tagged with and went painting with.
One story that I got told about gigs back in the day was the one out the front of Synagogue, which is now Apple.
Yeah, cool. Yep.
Where you had a bit of a...
Yeah, we had beef, yeah.
Yeah.
It was to do with 738 and JBL, and obviously I was affiliated with people from 738 crew, and I think some of the JBL boys had crossed out some of the 738 pieces or gone over pieces. I can't recall exactly what it was all about at the time, but that's pretty much where it stemmed from.
And then what actually happened, I heard, and once again, it could be rumour, that you actually... got on the mic and on the stage and called somebody out.
No. We just did a set, and then leaving the club, they were out the front, and boys will be boys. Crazy at the time, yeah, but we were all crazy at the time. The scene was still dominated by the graffiti crews, like we've gone over before. So, it still was crazy. It's still very tribal, and everyone was just fighting to see who was the toughest and who was the hardest and who was number one.
Competitive nature.
Yeah, I think it goes back to Star Wars. They watch the old Star Wars movies, the old graffiti movies, and all that sort of stuff. And there was always that element, that side to it that you know, that beef to it. So
Yeah.
that's hip hop.
The lesson.
True